The great chamber of the Galactic Council was the largest room ever built by thinking creatures. It stretched for miles in every direction. Thousands of seats rose in circles around a central platform, and in those seats sat the representatives of 400 species. Some had scales, some had fur, some were made of living crystal, some floated in tanks of strange liquid. All of them had come to watch humanity die. High Arbiter stood at the central platform. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 arms. His species, had ruled this part of the galaxy for 30,000 years. They had seen young species rise and fall like waves on a beach. Humanity was just another wave. He held a golden scroll in his upper hands. The scroll contained the declaration of extinction, a formal announcement that humanity would be erased from the galaxy. 17 species had signed it. Their fleets were already moving toward Earth. "Let it be known," said, his voice echoing through the chamber, "that the species called humanity has been judged. They have expanded too quickly. They have asked questions that should not be asked. They have shown ambition beyond their station. For the safety of all civilized peoples, they must be removed." He paused to let his words sink in. Around the chamber, representatives nodded and clicked and hummed in agreement. Humanity had only been traveling among the stars for 80 years. They were children compared to the ancient empires. Children who had somehow built ships that matched designs. Children who learned alien languages in months instead of decades. Children who looked at the old rules of the galaxy and asked, why? The old empires did not like that question. "The Coalition of 17 will begin military operations in 40 standard cycles," continued. "All human colonies will be burned. Earth itself will be reduced to ash. No human will be spared. This is the judgment of the Council." He rolled up the scroll and looked toward the human delegation's podium. It was a small platform at the edge of the chamber, barely visible among the great towers where older species sat. The Coalition expected screaming. They expected begging. They expected the humans to fall to their knees and plead for mercy. Ambassador Vance stood alone at the podium. She was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes. She wore a simple black suit. She had no claws, no armor, no visible weapons. To most species in the chamber, she looked like prey. She was smiling. The chamber grew quiet. This was not the reaction anyone expected. "Thank you, High Arbiter," said. Her voice was soft, but the chamber's systems carried it to every ear. "I appreciate the formal declaration. It clarifies things." Frowned, "You appreciate it. Your species has been sentenced to death, human. Do you not understand what is happening?" "I understand perfectly," said. 17 species have decided to destroy humanity. You have more ships than we can count, more soldiers than we can fight, more resources than we can match. By any logical measure, we should surrender and hope for mercy." She paused. "But you didn't offer mercy, did you? You offered extinction. You made it very clear that every man, woman, and child on Earth will die. Every human colony will burn. There will be no survivors." "That is correct," said. "You have brought this upon yourselves." Nodded slowly. "Then you have made our choice very simple. We cannot win a war against your fleets. We know this. You know this. But you have forgotten something important about humans, High Arbiter." She pulled a small device from her pocket. It was a simple, the kind that any merchant or student might carry. She pressed a button, and a hologram appeared above the central platform, large enough for the entire chamber to see. It was a face. Below the face was information: bank accounts, property records, medical files, private communications, photographs taken in places the High Arbiter had never told anyone about, names of people he had met in secret, records of money that had moved through hidden channels, everything. The chamber went silent. "High Arbiter," said, her voice still calm and pleasant, "you are our first." Stared at the hologram. His gray skin turned pale. "What is this? How did you?" "We have been among you for 80 years," said. "We attended your meetings. We served drinks at your parties. We cleaned your offices. We fixed your ships. You never noticed us because we were small and weak and unimportant. Just humans, just prey animals, not worth watching. She smiled again, and this time the smile reached her eyes. We watched you, we listened. We remembered every secret, every lie, every hidden shame. We know things about you that your own family does not know. We know things about every single person who signed that declaration. The chamber erupted in noise. Representatives shouted in a dozen languages. Some demanded explanations. Others called for to be arrested. But she stood calmly at her podium, waiting for the noise to die down. You declared war on humanity, she said when she could be heard again. You gave us no choice but extinction. Very well. We accept your war, but we will not fight it with ships and soldiers. We will fight it our way. She looked directly at. You are our first mark, High Arbiter, not your species, not your fleet. You, personally, we know where your family lives. We know where your children go to school. We know about the money you stole from the Reconstruction Fund. We know about the political rival you had killed 40 years ago. We know everything. She bowed politely, the way a student bows to a teacher. You wanted a war of extinction. You will get a war of exposure. Every leader who signed that declaration will be visited. Their secrets will be revealed. Their lives will be open for all to see. You cannot hide from us. You cannot run from us. We are already everywhere. She turned and walked toward the exit. Her footsteps echoed in the silent chamber. Sleep well, High Arbiter, she said without looking back. We will see you soon. The great doors closed behind her. For a long moment, no one moved, then looked down at his hands and saw that they were shaking. The war had begun, but it was not the war anyone had expected. Across the galaxy, 16 other leaders received copies of the same hologram, their own faces, their own secrets, their own hidden lives. And below each file in simple human letters were the same 7 words. You are on the list, we remember. The galaxy held its breath. The UES Quiet Professional was not a warship. It had no great cannons or missile tubes. It carried no fighters in its belly. From the outside, it looked like an old cargo vessel, the kind that moved goods between small colonies. That was exactly what it was supposed to look like. Inside, it was the most advanced intelligence ship ever built by human hands. Admiral Wei stood in the central briefing room, looking at a wall covered in faces. 17 faces. 17 leaders who had signed humanity's death warrant. Each face had a red line connecting it to files, reports, and photographs that filled the rest of the wall. This is Operation Personal Touch, he said to the officers gathered before him. Forget everything you learned about space warfare. We are not fighting that kind of war. Captain Sarah raised her hand. She was young for her rank, but she had spent 10 years as an intelligence operative before joining the fleet. Sir, the coalition has over 40,000 warships. We have 300. How exactly are we supposed to survive long enough to do anything? Wei smiled. It was a thin smile, the kind that did not reach his eyes. We survive by not being where they expect us to be. The coalition thinks we will gather our ships around Earth. They think we will try to defend our colonies. They think we will fight the way every other species has fought, with honor and courage and glorious last stands. He shook his head. We will do none of those things. Our colonies have already been evacuated. Our ships have scattered into deep space. Earth itself has been hidden behind a network of false signals and decoy stations. By the time the coalition reaches where they think we are, we will be somewhere else entirely. And then what? Asked. We hide forever. No, we hunt. Wei turned back to the wall of faces. These 17 individuals declared war on humanity, not their species, not their governments, them. They made this choice. They signed their names to our extinction, so we will make this war about them. He pointed to the first face. Every person on this wall has a life, a family, a reputation, secrets they have spent centuries hiding. We are going to tear those lives apart, not with bombs or bullets, with information, with exposure, with fear. An older officer commander leaned forward. Sir, with respect, how does embarrassing a politician stop a fleet? It doesn't stop a fleet, Wei admitted. But it stops the person who commands that fleet. Think about it, Commander. Why do leaders start wars? Not for their people, for themselves, for power, for glory, for the history books. They sacrifice millions of lives so that their names will be remembered. He tapped his face. This man signed the declaration because he wants to be remembered as the one who destroyed humanity. He wants statues built in his honor. He wants songs sung about his victory. But what happens if, instead of glory, he gets shame? What happens if every secret he has ever hidden is broadcast across the galaxy? What happens if his own people turn against him? The room was silent. He changes his mind, Wei said. He suddenly decides that this war was a mistake. He withdraws his signature, and then we move to the next name on the list. Commander nodded slowly. Death by 1,000 cuts. Exactly. We cannot fight 17 species, but we can fight 17 individuals. We can make their lives so difficult, so exposed, so miserable that they beg for peace just to make us stop. A young lieutenant at the back of the room raised his hand. Sir, what about Ambassador Vance? She walked into the council chamber and threatened the High Arbiter to his face. Every bounty hunter in the galaxy must be looking for her. Wei's smile grew wider. Ambassador Vance is exactly where she wants to be. She took a civilian transport deeper into Coalition space 3 days ago. She has meetings scheduled. Meetings with who? With the people on this wall, one by one. Wei clasped his hands behind his back. You see, the Coalition made a mistake when they declared extinction. They thought it would scare us into surrender. Instead, they set us free. When someone threatens to kill everyone you love, you stop worrying about rules. You stop caring about consequences. You become very, very focused. He turned to face his officers. Humanity has spent its entire history learning how to destroy powerful people. Kings, emperors, dictators, we have toppled them all. We know how to find secrets. We know how to spread rumors. We know how to turn friends into enemies and supporters into traitors. These are skills we have practiced for thousands of years. And now asked. Now we practice them on a galactic scale. Every species in this coalition thinks they understand humanity. They have studied our art and our music and our trade goods. They think we are soft and weak and emotional. They are about to learn what happens when you threaten something a human loves. He looked back at the wall of faces. We don't surrender, we don't forgive, and we never ever forget. The briefing ended. Officers returned to their stations. The quiet professional continued its silent journey through Coalition space, invisible among the millions of cargo ships that cross the stars every day. In her small cabin, Captain opened her personal terminal and reviewed her assignment. She had been given one name from the wall, Supreme Matriarch of the Hegemony. The file was thick with information, bank records, private messages, medical reports, even recordings of conversations the matriarch thought were secret. Had 6 months to destroy the most powerful woman in the hegemony, not with weapons, with truth. She started reading. Somewhere ahead of them, Ambassador Vance sat in the passenger cabin of a cheap transport ship. Around her, alien merchants and tourists talked and laughed, unaware that the most wanted human in the galaxy was sitting 3 seats away. Reviewed her own files. Her first meeting was in 2 days. High Arbiter thought he was safe behind his defensive fleets and his fortress walls. He was about to learn that walls mean nothing to someone who already knows what's inside. She closed her eyes and allowed herself a small moment of satisfaction. The coalition had wanted a war of extinction. They had gotten a war of exposure. And unlike extinction, exposure could not be stopped with ships and soldiers. Exposure only needed one person with the truth. Had the truth, all of it. And she was coming. Prime was a fortress world. 3 defensive fleets circled in permanent orbit. Ground-based weapons could shoot down anything that entered the atmosphere without permission. The planetary shield was strong enough to stop a nuclear strike. 800 of the finest warriors in the hegemony guarded the High Arbiter's personal estate. Had not left his home in 7 days. He told himself he was simply busy with the war effort. There were meetings to attend, reports to review, strategies to approve. The coalition's fleets were moving toward human space. Victory was certain. He had no reason to hide. But every night he checked the locks on his bedroom door. Every night he looked under his bed and inside his closets. Every night he remembered the human woman standing at that podium, smiling as she revealed secrets he had spent centuries hiding. She could not reach him here. It was impossible. No human ship could approach Prime without being destroyed. No human could land on the surface without being captured. His fortress was surrounded by guards who had orders to shoot any human on sight. He was safe. On the 7th night, went to sleep at exactly the same time he always did. The guards changed shift at exactly the same time they always did. The security systems ran their checks at exactly the same intervals they always ran. Everything was normal. Woke in the darkness to the smell of something strange. It took him a moment to recognize it. Tea. Someone was making tea in his bedroom. He sat up slowly, his heart racing. In the corner of the room, barely visible in the dim light, someone was sitting in his reading chair. A small figure, a human figure. "Good evening, High Arbiter," Vance said. "I hope you don't mind, I made tea. Your kitchen staff has excellent taste." His hand moved toward the alarm button beside his bed. He pressed it. Nothing happened. He pressed it again. "I disconnected it 3 hours ago," said. "Along with the motion sensors, the sound detectors, and the emergency beacon in your pillow. Very clever putting a beacon in the pillow. Most people would never think to look there." "How did you get in here?" His voice was barely a whisper. "I walked through the front door. Well, the servant's entrance, actually. I've been working in your kitchen for the past 4 months. Lovely staff. They were very welcoming." She poured 2 cups of tea and stood up. "May I turn on the light? I'd like you to see what I brought." She turned on the light before he could answer. Saw her clearly for the first time, a small, gray-haired human woman in simple servant's clothes. She looked like nothing. She looked like prey. But her eyes were calm and steady, and her hands did not shake as she carried the tea to his bedside. "You can call for your guards if you want," she said. "They won't hear you. The walls in this section are very thick, and I may have added some sound insulation while I was cleaning. But I'm not here to hurt you, High Arbiter. I'm here to talk." She set a cup of tea on his nightstand and sat down on the edge of his bed, sipping from her own cup. "What do you want?" asked. "I want you to withdraw your signature from the Declaration of Extinction, publicly, tomorrow morning. You will announce that you made a mistake, that humanity is not a threat, and that they will no longer participate in this war." Stared at her, then despite his fear he laughed. "You are insane. I am the High Arbiter. I cannot simply withdraw from a war because a human asked me nicely." "I know," said. "That's why I didn't plan to ask nicely." She pulled a small data device from her pocket and set it on the bed between them. "Do you remember a transport ship called the Vagrant Wind? It disappeared 42 years ago near the outer reaches. Officially, it was destroyed by pirates. All hands lost. Very tragic." His face changed, just slightly, just enough. "The Vagrant Wind was carrying 300 colonists to a new settlement," continued. "But it was also carrying something else. A sealed container in the cargo hold. Inside that container was evidence of your involvement in the assassination of Chancellor, your predecessor. You paid pirates to attack the ship and destroy it before it reached its destination. 300 innocent people died to protect your secret." "That's a lie," said. but his voice had no strength in it. I have the flight records, I have the payment transfers, I have testimony from one of the pirates who survived. He's been living on a colony world in human space for the past 30 years. He's very old now and he wanted to clear his conscience before he died. Took another sip of tea. Would you like to see the evidence? I can show you everything. Said nothing. I also have records of your private accounts on 7 different worlds. I have proof that you've been stealing from the military budget for decades. I have messages between you and your mistress, your wife's sister, I believe. Very interesting messages. And I have medical records showing that you suffer from a degenerative brain condition that you've hidden from the council for 15 years. She leaned closer. Tomorrow morning, you can announce your withdrawal from the war. You can tell everyone that you had second thoughts, that you believe diplomacy is a better solution, that you don't want blood spilled for a pointless conflict. People will respect you for your wisdom and courage. Her voice grew softer. Or you can refuse, and by tomorrow afternoon every piece of information I just mentioned will be broadcast across the galaxy. Every news network, every public forum, every government archive. Your career will be over. Your reputation will be destroyed. Your family will abandon you. You will spend the rest of your life as the most hated person in history. She finished her tea and stood up. The choice is yours, High Arbiter. I'm not going to threaten your life. I'm not going to hurt your family. I'm just going to tell the truth. And I think we both know that the truth will destroy you more completely than any weapon ever could. She walked toward the door, then paused. I'll let myself out through the servant's entrance. Please have your announcement ready by morning. I'd hate for things to get unpleasant. She opened the door and stepped out into the hallway. Heard her footsteps fading away, calm and steady, like she was simply a servant going home after a long day of work. He sat in his bed for a long time, staring at the data device she had left behind. Then, slowly, he reached for it and began to read. The next morning, High Arbiter appeared before the council and announced his withdrawal from the coalition. He spoke of wisdom and diplomacy and the value of peace. He smiled for the cameras and shook hands with his fellow council members. That night, alone in his fortress, he wept. And across the galaxy, 16 other leaders saw the news and felt something cold settle in their stomachs. The first name had fallen from the list. They knew their names would come next. The news spread through the galaxy like fire through dry grass. High Arbiter had withdrawn from the coalition. The most powerful leader in the Empire had backed down, and everyone knew why. A human woman had walked into his fortress and made him surrender. The remaining 16 leaders reacted in different ways. Some doubled their security, some moved to secret locations, some surrounded themselves with armies of guards and ships and weapons. They told themselves that they were different from, they were stronger, smarter, more careful. They were wrong. Supreme Matriarch of the Hegemony was the second to fall. She did not receive a visit from Vance. She did not get a quiet conversation over tea. She got something much worse. Her personal shuttle exploded 2 days after his withdrawal. The official report called it a malfunction, a failure in the engine systems. These things happened. Space travel was dangerous, very tragic. But 12 hours after her death, the black box data from her shuttle appeared on every news network in the galaxy. The recording showed that the matriarch herself had ordered the safety systems disabled. The recording showed that she had done this many times before. The recording showed that 14 years ago, she had used the same trick to murder a political rival by sabotaging his shuttle. She had killed herself with the same method she had used to kill others. The irony was not lost on anyone. The hegemony erupted in chaos. The matriarch's successor tried to continue the war, but the public had turned against the entire government. Protests filled the streets. People demanded answers. Within a week, the new leadership announced their withdrawal from the coalition, not because of human pressure, but because They were too busy fighting their own citizens. Admiral Wei received the report aboard the Quiet Professional. He marked the second name off the list and moved to the third. Elder Shard of the Crystalline Concordat was perhaps the most alien of the 17 leaders. His species was made of living crystal, beings that thought in frequencies and vibrated with emotion. They had no secrets in the human sense. They had no hidden bank accounts or secret lovers. They were, by their nature, transparent. But they had one great fear: dissolution. The crystals that formed their bodies could be shattered by the right resonance frequency. Every Elder Shard had a personal frequency that, if played at the right amplitude, would crack their neural matrix and kill them instantly. These frequencies were the most closely guarded secrets in the Concordat. Only the highest security systems knew them. Only the most trusted scientists had access. Elder Shard received a small package at his meditation chamber. Inside was a simple device, a small speaker with a single button. Beside it was a note written in careful, simple language. "We know your frequency. We know the frequencies of every Elder Shard in the Concordat. This speaker contains a recording that will end your existence if you press the button. We are giving it to you as a gift, not because we want to kill you, because we want you to understand." The note continued, "You cannot hide from us. You cannot protect yourself from us. We are everywhere. We know everything. The only way to survive is to withdraw from this war and leave humanity in peace. The choice is yours." Elder Shard held the speaker in his crystalline hands for a long time. He had lived for 3,000 years. He had survived wars and disasters and the slow death of stars. But he had never felt fear like this. He announced the Concordat's withdrawal that same day. The cascade had begun. One by one, the coalition fell apart. Some leaders quietly, making polite speeches about peace and cooperation. Others were exposed, their crimes broadcast across the galaxy, their reputations destroyed, their power stripped away by their own angry citizens. A few tried to fight, surrounding themselves with ever larger armies and ever stronger defenses. It did not matter. General of the militant hegemony built a bunker deep underground, protected by 100 meters of reinforced metal. He filled it with guards and weapons and enough supplies to last a century. He swore he would never surrender to human threats. 3 days later, he received a message from his own second-in-command. The message contained proof that had been selling military secrets to enemy nations for decades. The second-in-command had been given this proof by a human agent who had served in his personal staff for 12 years. Was arrested by his own soldiers, the militant hegemony from the coalition before sunset. Ambassador of the Trade Collective thought she was safe because she had nothing to hide. She had never committed crimes. She had never betrayed anyone. She was, by all accounts, an honest politician. But her son was not. She received a file showing her son's involvement in illegal weapons trading, ships and bombs that had been sold to terrorists, weapons that had killed thousands of innocent people. The file also showed that she had known about it. She had looked the other way because she loved her son. The humans did not threaten to expose her. They simply asked, "What kind of galaxy do you want to leave for a galaxy at war or a galaxy at peace? You have the power to choose." She from the coalition the next morning. Month after month the list grew shorter. 11 signatures. 9, 7, 5. The great coalition that had promised to erase humanity from the galaxy was crumbling from within. Admiral Wei watched the reports and felt something strange in his chest. It took him a moment to recognize it. It was hope. He had not felt hope in a long time. Somewhere in coalition space, Vance continued her work. She had not fired a single weapon. She had not killed a single person. She had simply talked to people and shown them the truth about themselves. It was, she thought, the most human form of warfare. They did not win through strength or violence. They won through knowledge, through patience, through the quiet, relentless pressure of truth. The galaxy had wanted to destroy humanity. Instead, humanity was destroying the galaxy's illusions, the comfortable lies that powerful people told themselves, the secrets they hid in the dark, the crimes they thought no one would ever discover. Everything was coming into the light. And in the light, the coalition was falling apart. Only 2 signatures remained on the declaration, 2 leaders who still refused to back down, 2 names that still needed to be crossed off the list. Vance looked at those names and smiled. She had saved the most difficult ones for last. 6 months had passed since the declaration of extinction. 6 months since 17 species had promised to erase humanity from existence. 6 months since Vance had smiled at the High Arbiter and told him he was first on the list. 15 names had been crossed off that list. 15 leaders had fallen, some through quiet surrender, some through public disgrace, some through the slow destruction of everything they had built. The great coalition had crumbled like sand castles before the tide. Only 2 remained. War leader of the burning fleet was the first of the holdouts. His species valued strength above all else. They believed that weakness was a disease and mercy was a crime. Had built his career on brutality, and he refused to show fear before any enemy, especially not a species as small and soft as humanity. He announced publicly that he would never withdraw from the coalition. He called the other leaders cowards and traitors. He moved his flagship to the front lines and dared the humans to come for him. Vance did not come for him. She did not need to. Instead, she released a single recording, a private conversation between and his personal physician. In the recording was weeping. He was describing nightmares that had plagued him since childhood. He was confessing that he was afraid of the dark, afraid of being alone, afraid that he was not strong enough to lead his people. For the burning fleet, this was worse than any crime. Their leader, their symbol of absolute strength, was weak. He was broken. He was everything they had been taught to hate. His own officers removed him from command before the day was over. They did not kill him. That would have been too kind. They simply stripped him of rank and title and left him to live with his shame. The new war leader announced the burning fleet's withdrawal within hours. 1 name remained. Grand Vizier of the Silent Dominion was the most dangerous enemy humanity had ever faced. His species communicated through thought rather than words. They could read minds, sense emotions, and detect lies with perfect accuracy. They had ruled their corner of the galaxy for 50,000 years, and they had never been defeated. Had not hidden from the humans. He had not surrounded himself with guards or run to secret bunkers. He had simply waited, curious to see what the humans would do. He believed that his telepathic abilities made him immune to their tricks. He could sense lies. He could detect threats. No human could fool him. Vance requested a meeting, accepted. They met in a neutral space station, in a small room with white walls and 2 chairs. Studied the human woman as she entered. He reached out with his mind, searching for deception, for hidden weapons, for the traps he knew must be there. He found nothing. Her mind was calm and clear, like a still pool of water. "You are not afraid," he said. It was not a question. "No," agreed. She sat down across from him. "I'm not afraid of you, Grand Vizier, and I'm not here to threaten you." "Then why are you here?" "To ask you a question." She leaned back in her chair and looked at him with those calm, steady eyes. "Why did you sign the declaration?" Considered the question. He could read her mind easily. She was not trying to hide anything. Her thoughts were exactly what they appeared to be, genuine curiosity. "Because your species is dangerous," he said. "You adapt too quickly. You learn too fast. In another 1,000 years, you will be more powerful than any species in the galaxy. It was logical to stop you now, while you are still weak." Nodded. "That's what I thought you would say, and I understand the logic. From your perspective, it makes perfect sense. But you disagree." "I think you made a mistake." She smiled slightly. You looked at humanity and saw a threat to be eliminated, but you didn't ask what kind of ally we might become. Felt something strange in her mind, not deception, but something deeper, a vision of the future, humanity standing alongside the great species of the galaxy, human creativity combined with Dominion wisdom, human determination combined with Dominion patience, a partnership that could achieve things neither species could accomplish alone. You are offering friendship, he said slowly, after everything we have done, after we signed your death warrant. I am offering a choice, said. You can continue this war. You can be the last name on our list. We will find your secrets eventually. Every species has secrets, even yours. We will expose them and your people will turn against you, just like all the others. She paused. Or you can withdraw from the declaration. You can be the species that chose peace when everyone else chose war. You can be remembered as wise instead of defeated. And maybe, in time, you can be our friends instead of our enemies. Stared at her, he could read her mind. He knew she was not lying. She genuinely believed what she was saying. She genuinely wanted peace. But more than that, she was not afraid. She had walked into a room with one of the most powerful telepaths in the galaxy, and she had felt no fear at all. Not because she was brave, not because she was foolish. Because she had already won. She knew it. He knew it. The only question was how he wanted the ending to be written. Your species is remarkable, he said finally. You have defeated 17 empires without firing a shot. You have turned our own secrets into weapons. You have made us destroy ourselves. We've made you face the truth, corrected. There's a difference. Was silent for a long moment. Then he stood and bowed, a gesture of respect that his species almost never showed to outsiders. The silent Dominion withdraws from the coalition, he said. The war is over. 2 weeks later, Vance returned to the Galactic Council chamber, the same chamber where she had been sentenced to extinction, the same podium where she had smiled and declared war. This time, the chamber was silent with a different kind of fear. She stood at the human delegation's podium, still small, still at the edge of the great room, still barely visible among the towers of older species. But now, every eye was on her. Every representative leaned forward to hear her words. The declaration of extinction has been rescinded, she said. All 17 signatures have been withdrawn. The war is over and humanity still stands. She paused to let the words sink in. I know what you are thinking. You are thinking that humanity cheated, that we didn't win fairly, that we used tricks and deception instead of honest warfare, and you are right. We did not fight your war. We fought ours. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of species that had wanted her kind erased from existence. You looked at humanity and saw prey, soft creatures with short lives and no claws. You thought you understood us because you had seen 1,000 species like us before, but you made one mistake. Her voice grew stronger. You assumed that because we die easily, we fear death. We don't. What we fear is being forgotten. We fear our lives will mean nothing. So we spend our short existence learning how to be remembered, and we've learned that the easiest way to be remembered is to tear down the powerful. She smiled that calm, knowing smile. You have ruled this galaxy for millions of years. You have built empires and conquered worlds and written your names in the stars. But you have forgotten something that humans never forget. Every throne sits on secrets. Every empire is built on lies. And sooner or later, someone comes along who knows how to tell the truth. She bowed politely, the way she had bowed to on that first day. We are not your enemies. We never were. We simply wanted to live. You are the ones who chose war. Remember that the next time you think about threatening a species you believe is weaker than you. She straightened and gathered her things. The human delegation will be taking its seat on the council. We have much to discuss: trade agreements, cultural exchanges, mutual defense treaties. The future is long, and there is room for all of us in it. She walked toward the human delegation's tower. It was no longer at the edge of the chamber. Overnight, it had been moved to the center, among the oldest and most powerful species in the galaxy. "Welcome to the new age," said quietly to no one in particular. "We're all equals now." Behind her, the council watched in silence. Some felt anger, some felt shame, but most of all, they felt something they had never expected to feel toward humanity. Respect. And underneath the respect, cold and quiet and impossible to ignore, was fear. Because now the galaxy knew the truth about humans. They were small and soft and short-lived. They had no claws or armor or psychic powers. But they remembered everything. They never forgave a threat to their people. And somewhere, in a file that no one else knew existed, they had information about everyone. Everyone had a file. Everyone could be destroyed. And humanity would never let the galaxy forget it. The war was over. The new age had begun.